It is utterly infuriating to see the Home Office blatantly misleading the general public with posts like this on X. And I have to air my views on this because they do so, and this post here has got 284,000 views, or probably impressions, but nonetheless, 284,000 people, most of whom are probably in the UK, will have seen this and get the idea from this post that says, for the first time, illegal migrants who cross the channel on small boats will be detained and returned to France. Our returns pilot takes one step closer to restoring order in the UK's immigration system, etc. However, we have Chris Philp here out on the channel this morning showing that this is obviously not working because they've spotted 2 at least migrant boats within half an hour, each of which probably got 50 to 60 people on it or up to 100 people on it. You can see it in the distance there. He showed on another video that the French warship was pretty much shadowing and escorting, if you like. There it is. There's the French warship. Shadowing it across the channel. Now it's a couple of hours away. They'll be in the UK within a couple of hours. Now, the Home Office would tell you that for the first time, they are returning everybody. But when you look at the detail, that is absolutely just patently misleading. Now, my problem with this is as follows. With great respect to the majority of the public, they haven't got time to read all of this stuff and look into the full details of every little thing, of every little policy. And so most people will take the headlines, which is where I have a bit of an issue with headlines in general, because you see one big headline and it may give you one impression of a story, but when you read the story, it's not quite as it says in the headline sometimes. And this is no different. So when the Home Office says that they are taking this first step, we need to look into the detail. And so if you haven't gathered, we are on my Off the Record channel. I will give you what I quite frankly think about these things, and it's utterly infuriating. So please do subscribe to my channel here, Off the Record. Thank you all so much for now over 80,000 subscribers in such a short time. Let's get to 100,000 as an alternative to mainstream media, open conversation, talking about these things, because these are absolutely prudent. If you need to know what's going on and you want to look behind the detail and you want to do it in a relaxed way, just hear what I think, then please do subscribe. Now, let's take a look at that detail, shall we? This is the document that sets out the agreement, if you like, and this was published on the 4th of August, literally a couple of days ago. UK-France treaty targeting illegal crossings comes into force. Now, this is not as groundbreaking as it might suggest. It says here, the treaty provides a legal basis for the groundbreaking UK-France pilot scheme. But the bit in the middle is a one in, one out. So that is a net zero return. They didn't say in the post here, for the first time, we are setting up this deal, which is a net zero returns policy, whereby if someone comes here illegally, they are at risk of being returned to France, in exchange for whom we will accept somebody who is on a pre-agreed list with France that they are happy to come here. Now, let's put this bluntly. France has every incentive to let them come to the UK, because then to put it bluntly, they're no longer France's problem anymore. Now, usual caveat, some people deserve help, and this is not aimed at them. But France have every incentive to let them come here. The people coming here on a boat have every incentive to come here, aside from the risks to their life, which is tragic and terrible, and aside from all of what that entails, they have every incentive to come here. Because they get a hotel here, they get healthcare here, they get dental care here, they are working illegally here, and it would seem that not enough is being done to prevent that. So they are earning thousands of pounds a week, not paying tax, of course, because they're not supposed to be paying tax. And all the while, they're being protected, because if there's protests outside, obviously there's a need to protect them. Now, which is right. I mean, no one should come to harm, and no one should do them any harm. But that said, they have every incentive to come here, and France has zero incentive to take them back, which is why this deal's so rubbish. Because if it were a proper deal, it would be, okay, France, look, we'll give you some money to do this, that, and the other, as long as we can send them all back. Anyone that comes here illegally, let us send them back and put them through a proper application procedure, whereby people who can demonstrate and can prove that they absolutely, genuinely do need our help that France can't provide, or is unwilling to provide, or the UK government agrees to work with France to provide, or whatever, through that legal means, I agree, we do need a legal route for people that genuinely need help. But at the same time, the UK does need to sort itself out first, because it's a bit like the oxygen mask scenario. You can't help someone else until you have your own oxygen mask on. You cannot help somebody else unless you've sorted yourselves out first. But let's read on so that people do have the proper picture. So hopefully this video gets 184,000 views of many of the same people that saw that post and get the real idea of what's really going on. Under this agreement, an equal number of migrants will be eligible to come to the UK through a new route if they've not attempted to illegally cross before. Well, I respectfully suggest that most of those illegally crossing don't care about the laws of illegally crossing and will just do so anyway, because if they get away with it, they'll do that. It says, and there's further misleading points further down here. I'll come back to those in a minute. But there's also absolutely zero commitment whatsoever, despite how many times they've been asked, as to how many are going to be sent back. Now, there's numbers banded around about 50 or so. I think 50 a week. So 50, that's only like 2,600, which is like 2 or 3% of the numbers that come here. And that percentage is going to go down with the number of people going up. So the more people that come here, that percentage will go down, if indeed it is 50 people a week. They've been pressed, and that's the only figure that was indicative initially. So 50 people a week. Well, at the moment, we get as many as 1,000 or so a day, sometimes. Literally in the last week or so. Let's take a quick look. Small boat arrivals, last 7 days. There's been none for the last few days, although this will change tomorrow. These statistics will change tomorrow. On the 30th of July, there were 898 and 149 the day before that. On 13 boats on the 30th of July. So how is 50 per week going to put a dent in this number when nearly 900 arrived on one single day? It's a complete waste of time, even if this works, because not only is it net zero, one in, one out, so the numbers just are unaffected, but it won't make any difference because they will like their odds, because they'll be just in the tiny, tiny percentage of people that are at risk of being returned, so they just won't be bothered by it. But now let's look at some other misleading statements here. I've covered these before, but it infuriates me because this is a new post day before yesterday, a new post reiterating the lie, in my personal view, based on the reasons I'll give you in a minute, when they say in the first year in office, this government returned more than 35,000 people with no right to be in the UK. That's not strictly true, because the enforced returns are 6,000 or 7,000, and the remainder probably just left voluntarily. They might have had a nudge and a letter and a nod to say that they need to leave, and so probably then decided to leave. Or they might have had a threat of deportation. Oh, you leave, or we're going to send someone around to pick you up and take you out of the country. Then they probably left of their own accord. They didn't forcibly return 35,000 people. The enforced returns, and even then I suspect that the enforced return bit includes a lot of people that they just sent a threat to say, we will send someone tomorrow, and then they say, okay, we'll go. I don't think that the full 6,000-7,000 is actually people they physically put on a plane and sent away, or a boat and sent away somewhere. So I doubt that anyway. But even then, let's say that was true. Let's say it was 6,000 or 7,000 that they had forcibly removed from the UK. It's not 35,000 people, and their own statistics show that. Their own statistics show that that figure is wrong. And then they say that for the first time we are able to send people away. Well, that's not true either, because since it was enacted, the Immigration Act 1971, as enacted, had a clause in it under Section 3.5. A person who's not a British citizen is liable to deportation from the UK if it's deemed to be conducive to the public good. But then, of course, they throw in all the ECHR arguments, which then have prevented many of them from being deported in any event. And so we are stuck, however you look at it, which is infuriating, because we are supposed to be a sovereign nation. We are supposed to be able to decide what we do. And it seems that we are stuck partly by the laws that we've agreed to be bound by, and by these new deals, which are not as they are being sold to the public here. It is being sold as an idea that for the first time we're sending them back. And it reads like they're sending them all back. And it's not. them all. They haven't committed to numbers. They haven't committed to any numbers whatsoever. And here, Keir Starmer 20 hours ago reposts and says for a long time, or the Home Office reposted Keir Starmer, excuse me, and says, the British people for a long time have been paying the price for a broken asylum system. My government's taking decisive action to tackle the problem head on. For the very first time, migrants arriving by small boats will be detained and returned to France. But for all the reasons I've just given you, that again is just misleading. People will see that and think, aha, they are returning them now, but which is not true. So either do what it sounds like you are telling people you are doing, or make it clear that we are testing one in, one out to see whether we can have some, build on some arrangement with France. Because unless that builds anywhere, unless that goes anywhere with France, unless they actually up those numbers, up the level, up the arrangement, etc., we are on a downward spiral in this country because the system is going to be overwhelmed. And this is nothing to do with race and religion. It's sheer numbers. It is sheer numbers that are in the asylum system. So Keir Starmer's correct here. And again, I reiterate the caveat, some people need help. What this is, however, with the sheer numbers of illegal migrants coming here, this is to the detriment of those people that genuinely do need our help. Because let's say that there were 2,000 or 3,000 women and girls, for example, which is what many people talk about. Let's say there were 2,000 or 3,000 women and girls in war zones being treated horrendously, risk to their lives and safety, and we do want to protect them, because that I would get behind. I would get behind an argument that says we do need to protect those 2,000, 3,000 women and girls, or children, and absolutely need our protection. I would absolutely support that. But they are going to get lost in the statistics of the sheer thousands of people that are coming here. And there may be some women, girls, and children on board those boats, but they are dwarfed by the numbers of people coming here. That is the problem. And until we get a grip on that, this is a downward spiral for them as well as this country, because we simply will not be able to cope with the sheer numbers overwhelming the system. That is a mathematical fact. It's nothing to do with race, religion, ethnicity, or anything to do with where they came from. There are issues about where they came from. There are statistics that show that certain areas are multiple times more likely to commit certain horrendous offences. But in this case, we are talking about sheer numbers. And even on the pure mathematical analysis of this, it is a disaster building in the making. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Please restrict any comments that are hateful, hurtful, or inciting any kind of issues whatsoever, because you'll be liable for those comments. And so I urge you not to make those comments for your own safety. But with that, please do subscribe to the channel, because people need to know that this is not quite as it's being portrayed to you. So with that, please do subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.